Welcome, Carl. Welcome to the Vedanta Delhi Half Marathon. And
Great,
welcome
thank you.
to Delhi. How's it been so far?
It's great. I mean, I live in Houston right now and it's very hot. So this is a pleasant surprise. The weather's very nice. I'm happy to be back.
Yeah, we were talking to some of the athletes who's going to be racing on Sunday, and they were pretty happy with the weather here. And I think anything under 24 degrees Celsius is something prime for all of them to consider as good running weather.
Yeah, especially for distance runners. I mean, obviously sprinters like it warmer, but this is really nice. It has a nice breeze, not too much where the wind affects you, but it's a nice breeze to feel it.
That's right. Talking of which, mine goes to Tokyo. And if I had to make a statement that after Carl Lewis, there is going to be no other jumper sprinter in history, how would you react to that?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, I probably agree with you. I don't think society is preparing kids to be tough enough to do all those events. Yeah. And in my day, there were multiple people doing it. I had the most success, but there were multiple people that were sprinting and jumping. Larry Myrick's, Mike Conley, they had success in both of those. But yeah, unfortunately, I just don't think that people have the stomach to do it anymore.
Oh, is it just the stomach, or is it the fear of, you mean the fear of injuries and stuff like that?
No, it's not. It's because if you're going to be a jumper and a sprinter, you have to be a jumper that sprints. And so what happens if a jumper sprinter has success in the sprints, they stop jumping because it's easy. You know, oh my God, the sprints are easy compared to the jumps. So they don't stay in the jumps and then continue to sprint. They just go to the sprints because it's so much easier.
Got it. So everyone talks about your Olympic medals, and I'm sure you go to a bunch of places where everyone talks about, but I'm sure you've had those lonely moments where there's been doubt, there's been injury, there's been stuff. So how is there a particular point at which, which kind of changed the trajectory of your career from possibly a low or a moment of not having enough confidence and then turning that into fuel to do something great?
Well, I had a number of things that happened in 1990s. I mean, in 1994, I contracted Giardia. So in less than a year before that, I was in a car accident. And then a year later, I found that I was hyperthyroid. So there was a period there, 2 years, where it was really tough. And I was in my 30s, so that didn't help it either. But I just changed my focus to try to focus on performing at a certain level. Didn't have to worry about winning. Fortunately for me, that worked out. But you're not going to be an athlete and not have those tough times and have the down times. In the early 80s, 85, 86 was a challenging time. Not nearly as much then because I was still young. But I think that the end of 93 through 95 was a really tough period.
I just want to move on to a question, which is the science of flight, which has been spoken in your context so many times. Often it's said that when you jumped, you floated, almost defying physics. Is there something that possibly enough people haven't figured out about your jumping, in which was there any hidden biomechanical insight or something, or was it just something that happened naturally?
No, it's a great question, and there is. There is a way to jump farther. It's what you do in the last 3 steps and how you project and the angle of takeoff. Those are 3 things, or a couple of things that are specifically. My last 3 steps were different than the athletes now. The angle of takeoff is different. It's lower than the athletes now. And so I can see that. But right now, for instance, I don't see one jumper in the world that has those last 3 steps down. That's why the distances are not that far.
Wow. People today talk about mindfulness and mental conditioning almost as if it's a science. Back in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't such a buzzword, right? And were there any mental tools or rituals that you did on your own which could kind of surprise the psychologists today?
Well, I think what happens is that we were fulfilling a self-fulfilling prophecy. We're not challenging young people enough as kids. They can handle it. They're strong, they're resilient, they're smart, but we don't think so. So we're taking things back from them. And then later we wonder why they can't handle things. So we don't put enough on their plate. And then when they finally get things on their plate, we wonder why they can't handle it. So I think kids are just as strong. I think kids are just as resilient. Kids are just as smart. It's just that we're not trusting them as a society to handle it like they used to trust us.
Okay. Um, records keep falling, but human psychology hasn't really changed dramatically. Uh, do you have any thoughts, predictions, anything about how training is going to change or nutrition is going to change, or any insights into technology? For instance, what do you think will happen to 100 meters in terms of timing and in terms of athletes going after the holy grail?
Yeah, I think times are going to get faster, but the biggest issue is technology. The shoes are dramatically better. The shoes are making, I think at some point, not too far future, shoes are going to make up an entire tenth of a second in the 100 meters.
Wow.
Within 10 years. They're more than a half of a tenth of a second now. So I think the tracks will continue to get better. Athletes, they're always going to be great, and I don't know how nutrition is going to play into that in the future because there's so many factors involved. But there's no question, I think technology is going to be better and athletes are going to run faster.
Another thing is linked to your coaching, and while you counted your greatness in terms of the medals and accolades and the recognition at the highest levels, I think today a lot of athletes seem to be motivated by TikTok likes and Instagram likes, and as a coach, how do you handle them? And because you've gone through an era where it didn't exist and probably it had its benefits and the drawbacks, how do you deal with your mentorees or the one you're training in terms of how to handle this in the right optimal manner?
Well, I understand. I tell kids all the time, life is it's not a text message, so you actually have to live it. So we're not allowed to have their phones near the track during practice or competition. They're not allowed to have earphones when they're on the track. So there are kids now that think that just because you have 2 million followers, you're respected as an athlete. No, you're respected as an athlete first, and then you get 2 million followers. But you know what? The thing is that if you get that first million followers because you're doing all your TikTok videos on the track, they're not the people that are going to respect your performance. So I love social media. I love this era. I would have loved to have been around now. I think we way overplay the drawbacks. I think there's so many more positives. There are 10 positives to one drawback. Because information's out there all the time. I get it. Everything you do something they tell, okay, I get it. But the way you can communicate who and what you are, what you want to do, what you're doing is just incredible. And I love social media. It's just it has to be focused on how it's positive. Now, what are some of the drawbacks? First of all, you don't have to tell the truth on social media. So no matter who you are as an athlete, I could have a race of 8 people and I can shoot that where it's, let's say if I'm 5th place, I can shoot it at an angle where I look like I'm in 2nd place and then put that out. Or, man, I got first place today, but then they only show lanes 1 through 4. So there's a way that you can, that's a negative way. But I think that the overwhelming idea of social media is so positive and it's great for sports.
When we talked about the angle, I was just thinking about when you broke the world record. The commentator actually didn't call you as the winner out first.
Yeah, when I broke the world record the last time, because I came from behind. And the thing is that race and the long jump has shown me one of the downfalls of social media is that everyone is an automatic critic. So a couple of years ago, I did something interesting. I went on one of the social media platforms and I said, the long jump is the most difficult event in track and field.
Wow.
And for 2 weeks, I watched the responses. Every response said, no, it isn't, this is, no, it isn't, that is, no, you don't know. That just went on and on and on and on and on. So after 2 weeks, I decided to jump back in and I said, I asked this question 2 weeks ago. I made this statement rather, and not one person asked me, why do you think that?
Yeah.
So the point is that all these people were just as smart as I was in this event, simply because they can type out their opinion on social media.
Which brings me to a question I hadn't planned. Why did you think so?
Well, it is the only event maybe in all of sports where you're genetically predisposed to not do correctly.
Yeah.
We are not designed to jump out. We're designed to jump up. Because if you jump out, normally you may fall. So genetics taught us how not to jump far, jump out, to jump up.
It's excellent. Um, you know, um, Actually, there was Mike Powell with us a couple of years back, and he actually, when we saw his photographs online, he looked like he'd put on a lot of weight and stuff like that. And when we saw him in person, he was this very ultra lean person sitting in front of us. And we said clearly, I mean, you really changed very quickly. And he said, you know, there was a commemorative event in Tokyo for the 1992 event, and you walked up to him and you kind of patted him, and he said, I almost felt like he was looking at me and telling me, you know, you're not been really taking care of yourself. You adjust. And he says he didn't say a word. I remember Carl never said anything, but I got back home and I said, this is never going to happen again. Even here, he would never sit tight anywhere. He wouldn't sit. You just keep walking. He says, every calorie I can run. You could dancing. And I remember this, and I was hoping that someday if I ever meet you, I'm going to just tell you this tale.
We do a number of things together, and it's hard. I mean, we're both in our 60s now.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep that weight, to stay in shape. And the funny thing for me is that I feel like this is a weird thing to say, but years ago, maybe 20 or so years ago, I was listening to a song, some music from high school. And I heard this song, and there's a particular song by this group named Foxy, the song is Get Off.
Yeah.
And it came out when I was in 11th grade, and it was the day the seniors were graduating from high school. So this was the day where we were saying, seniors, you go, it's our turn. And I will never forget that. So whenever I hear this song, I go to that moment. So when people kept saying to me, oh my gosh, you look the same. And I just see the look in their eyes, it made me feel like, wow, maybe I'm their, you know, I could be their song.
Yeah.
And so it's important for me, not just for me to stay in shape because of health. My mother was a health teacher, I get that, but also all these incredible fans around the world, you know, if I can stay close, then maybe when I walk in the room, if I see them, it takes them back to some great moments in their life too.
That's incredibly beautiful. I remember someone trolling Arnold Schwarzenegger recently, and he's being told that, you know, Arnold's getting out of shape. He says, that's great, because only someone who's been in excellent shape can go out of shape.
Yeah.
I put in all those hours. I know I can't look like what I did in 20s,
Right.
but it's nothing compared to the average person. 99% of the population is
Yeah,
just
and,
not.
and Arnold's almost 80.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
good luck with that.
And people are trolling him out of shape. It's just crazy.
You're right, 29-year-olds. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, right, like I said, sitting down there doing
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
and who knows what they look like.
Yes, exactly. Okay, last thing that I want to do is a matchup where I'll tell you an athlete's name across the ages and another athlete, and you have to pick the one which stays for the next round. So there'll be about 10 rounds. So I'll say, let's say Carl Lewis and another athlete. And you can say Carl stays because you think Carl's better than them.
Oh, okay. I'm picking who I
Simple
think is
match.
better,
Yeah, that's
you know,
it.
across the board.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going with the jumpers. It's not the sprinters, it's the jumpers.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start. So Jesse Owens versus Ralph Boston.
Ooh, that's hard. Those are two of my favorites. I would say, I mean, honestly, you have to say Jesse Owens, but that's not fair. Ralph should be later. I have to say Jesse, but I'm a massive, massive, massive Ralph Boston fan.
Yeah. Okay. Jesse Owens or Bob Beamon?
Another one of my friends. I would say Jesse. Bob changed the world. He changed all of sports. Nothing in the history of sports has ever defined sports or defined greatness like what Bob did. But I look at Jesse as a person who was always doing something else and long jumping. So I would say Jesse.
Oh, Jesse stays.
But there's no one else really except like Mike Powell. That's it.
Jesse Owens and Larry Marix.
Well, Jesse Owens. Larry was great, and he just came around at the wrong time.
Okay, Jesse Owens and Joe Green.
Joe Green. Well, Jesse Owens, obviously, because Joe Green was it's really a great champion. I mean, so many people wouldn't remember him, but he had 2 bronze medals in the Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jesse Owens versus Eric Walder.
Eric Walder, simpler guy. I mean, guy that had a lot of college success, but not professional success. So Jesse Owens.
Okay. And Jesse Owens versus Dwight Phillips.
Dwight Phillips, well, Jesse, of course, because of what he's done, but Dwight is the last great jumper in the world.
Okay.
He's the last. There have been no great jumper since.
That makes my other questions difficult now. Dwight Phillips versus Jeffrey Henderson.
Dwight Phillips, absolutely.
Great.
That made the question easy.
Okay. Dwight Phillips versus Jarian Lawson.
Dwight Phillips.
Dwight Phillips versus Mike Powell.
Well, Mike Powell, because he beat me. So I have to give Mike his credit.
Okay, then that comes to the last one, which is Mike Powell versus Carl Lewis.
We're great friends. Okay, here's the deal. I'll do it like this. So we ended our careers and would have loved something from the other. Okay, so when I see Mike, he's like, dang, one of those medals for this world record, and I go and say, I'll give you a medal for the world record, but we can't do it. So Mike and I are leaning at the tape.
Good. That pretty much comes to the end of the conversation. And do you know what's Mike Powell's best time in 100 meters?
I do not, but the one good thing about that is that everyone says, oh, you were so fast, so fast. Well, Mike Powell was nowhere near as fast as I was, and he jumped farther than me, so it's not just about the speed.
Yeah, he's 10:45. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just about the speed. Yeah. It's about the aggression and the angle of takeoff at the board.
Did you ever think that he's going to jump farther than you in Tokyo?
No. I'm just be honest. No, I didn't. And that's not a slight on him, but it was my mindset then wasn't even thinking of losing. I had not lost in almost 11 years. I mean, over 10 years. And think about this. I never lost a long jump in my 20s. So I lost at 19, and then I lost again at 30. So I went my entire 20s where I never lost. So it wasn't about him. It was about me and how far I wanted to jump.
The last thing, I would love you to tell the story which I've heard before, which is about how you really was not much of a speaker and a very shy person, and it was taken for snootiness when you used to finish the race and just as farther as possible from the reporters and the journalists and the photographers.
Yeah.
And how you changed that thing right after.
Well, I did. I wanted to be a global superstar. I wanted to be super rich and super famous. I wanted to be all of that stuff. And I was very shy, very, very shy. I was a late bloomer, so I was small, I was shy. And so I studied and trained myself to be able to communicate and to talk and to do it. I took classes at university, speech classes and other things like that. I went to a voice teacher, vocal coach. I worked at a TV station. I worked at a radio station. So I took acting classes. I worked at all of that. This isn't just like, oh, he's such a natural. No, I was not a natural. I was trained and prepared to be able to communicate this way. And so it was because I wanted to be successful. And so I did everything at every level to be as successful as I could be.
Thanks so much. I mean, we have time only for this. There'd be 100 questions I would have loved to ask you. Great. Okay. It was very nice. Thank you so much.